Okay, by a show of hands, how many of you in the audience are either in love or want to be at some point in your lives? Okay, that's everybody, like I figured. Everyone desires companionship, someone to fulfill their needs, whether it's financially, emotionally, sexually, or whatever you might need. Although I'm sure we'd all love to find the most attractive person we can, give them a love potion, and have them forever, we all know that's not the way that it works. Right now, we're at the age where our dating lives are in full swing. We've all been on a few dates and been attracted to lots of different people, but we've also been repelled by others. So how do our brains make the choice, hot or not? And what makes the Brad Pitts of our world just so attractive? It turns out that most of your initial feelings about a person's attractiveness are based on subconscious thoughts. New studies are beginning to uncover the science behind attraction. These new findings aren't all about the typical things you would think. They're not about power, money, and personality, but they have more to do with facial and body structure, natural odor, and even voice pitch, and what each of these things means. So one big factor in determining someone's attractiveness is their facial structure, which is pretty obvious because it's usually the first thing that you notice or look at. One factor that makes a face attractive is facial symmetry. From the time of conception, we're made by splitting cells, which creates symmetry. If each of these cells were to split perfectly, your left and right sides of your body would be exact mirror images of each other. According to an article entitled The Rules of Attraction, genetic mutations and other environmental pressures can change the symmetry of our bodies and faces. Studies have shown that the more symmetric a face is, the more attractive people find it to be. Good facial symmetry shows good health and fertility and also good genes because you survived your development with the least amount of mutations possible. Lisa DeVrine, a professor in Scotland, conducted a study regarding facial symmetry. She took pictures of people and then altered their pictures to make their faces more symmetric. She then hung these pictures, the original next to the altered one, side by side, and told her class that they were twins. She asked which one was more attractive. 8 out of 10 people picked the symmetric one. Dr. Kendra Schmidt, a biostatistics professor, developed a formula for the perfect face. It's based on 29 measurements on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the least symmetric, which is also the least attractive, and 10 being the most symmetric, which is supposedly the most attractive. 10s would have a ratio of length to face width that is 1.6, which means your face is 1.6 times the width of your face. Your left and right sides would be exact mirror images if you had a perfect face, and your face would be able to be divided into 3 parts vertically that are exactly equal, which would be your forehead, from the bottom of your forehead to the bottom of your nose, and from the bottom of your nose to the bottom of your chin. When she was on the Oprah show, they asked Dr. Schmidt who was the most attractive person in the world based on her formula, and it was actually Brad Pitt. He was a 9.3 out of 10, and she said that's the highest she's ever seen. She also said that most celebrities rank between a 7 and a 9, which is why science believes that most people find celebrities so attractive, that they're so widely attractive anyways. So along with facial structure, body structure is another huge part that plays a role in how we determine if someone is attractive or not. But not only do you think about it consciously, but it sends signals to your subconscious. According to Devendra Singh of the University of Texas, the waist-to-hip ratio can tell a lot about a person. Based on a study conducted by Dr. Singh, women with a waist-to-hip ratio of 0.67 to 1.18, which means that their waist is smaller than their hips, either slightly or maybe the same, maybe slightly bigger. And men with a waist-to-hip ratio of 0.8 to 1.0, which is more of a straight body, are most attractive to the opposite sex. So why is the waist-to-hip ratio so important? First off, it's what we use to determine gender. When you look at a person, you tend to look at their midsection first. Carrie Johnson, a UCLA professor, conducted a study using the waist-to-hip ratio. She took silhouettes of people, so it had no hair, had no boobs, no added things, and she simply changed the waist-to-hip ratio. She then sat her experimentees in chairs and had them look at the screen, and she could track where their eyes went first and how long they stayed in one position. She found that most people looked first to the torso, so to your chest, your hips, and your waist. And most of the experimentees determined that a smaller waist is associated with the women and a straighter body is associated with a man. The waist-to-hip ratio is also important because it shows if you have energy to care for offspring. If someone is a little bit thicker in that area, sometimes you assume that they don't do as much or they might be lazy or things like that. The location of fat the location of fat on your body where it is deposited is determined by sex hormones. So women with the correct mixture and amount of estrogen and men with the correct mixture and amount of testosterone will naturally fall within the waist-to-hip ratio, or the desired waist-to-hip ratio. Also, people with a desired waist-to-hip ratio are less susceptible to cardio disease, diabetes, and even cancer. So having a good waist-to-hip ratio promotes or says that you have good fertility and good genes. So the next part in the science behind attraction is odor. Dr. Laura Berman, a sex therapist, says that there are a whole realm of subconscious scents that we're not even aware that we're smelling. She says that we smell about 10,000 scents consciously, but there's a whole another realm that sends signals to our brain that we don't even actually smell or know that we smell. Dr. Berman also talked about the t-shirt study when she was on Oprah. This study had women smell different men's t-shirts, sweaty t-shirts, so it was the man's natural odor. They knew nothing about the man. They didn't know his name, what he looked like, his income, nothing about him. And according to this study, women were most attracted to men, or to the man's odor who had the most different MHC or immune system, because this tends to have the best chance of their offspring surviving. And she also said that women on birth control were often attracted to men with the same MHC, because when you're on birth control, your body is tricked into believing that you're pregnant, and so you don't ovulate, so you don't produce the correct chemicals to smell another fertile man. Odor also has to do with fertility, like I was saying. A study conducted by two leading scientists in their field, Carl Grammer and Elizabeth Oberzacher, showed that women who are ovulating are attracted to men who produce a smell that show they have high levels of testosterone. So basically, the most fertile people are attracted to the most fertile people. So in addition to odor, voice pitch is another thing that determines how attractive we find a person. According to Dr. Gallup, an NYU professor, women are attracted to men with lower voices, and men are attracted to women with higher voices. Not only does this signal masculinity and femininity, but men with lower voices have higher levels of testosterone, and men with lower voices have higher levels of testosterone, and women with higher voices have higher levels of estrogen. So this also signals good fertility. So today we learned about what scientists are recently discovering about the science behind sexual attraction. As you might have noticed throughout my speech, the factors we talked about weren't typical factors that you notice when you look at someone or when you first meet them. From facial and body structure to someone's voice pitch, most of the things I talked about had more to do with fertility and survival of the fittest and what would produce the best offspring than what clothes your prospective lover or might be wearing. Now that you're aware, maybe next time you're out, you'll find yourself paying a little more attention to these things, and who knows, maybe you'll even find your soulmate. Thank you.
My name's Amira and I'm Riley's friend.
My name is Katie and I'm Riley's friend.
My name is Megan and I'm Riley's friend.
My name is LaFonda and I'm Riley's friend.
I'm Daniel and I'm Riley's friend.